Most people try to change their life through forced action, forced discipline, by hopping on a new trend every other week, or trying to control their thoughts or emotions. But the thing is our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, who we show up as, all come from our state of being. Not only that, but our state of being determines how we experience the world around us. For example, we all experience the same emotions, generally speaking, but how we experience those emotions changes depending on the state of being that we're in. So your state of being, it isn't your emotions, it isn't your thoughts, and those things aren't something you have to control. They're just symptoms or side effects or projections of where you are internally, of what your state of being is, of what you're imagining about yourself or about the world. So by the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can own your state of being. So rather than fighting yourself or fighting the shadow world, you can rest in the knowing that your desires or your manifestations are here. You can feel them here and now when you can own your state of being. And when you can feel them here and now, that's how you manifest. Now, before I go over how you can own your state of being, I first want to go over what your state of being isn't. And it's not your thoughts, it's not your emotions. Your thoughts are electrical signals, they're something happening in your brain, they're part of the shadow world. Your emotions are chemical reactions, they're part of your body. That is something that's happening in the shadow or physical world. Because something not a lot of people talk about is we are not these characters we play. We're not these physical vessels. What we are is the light behind them. We are what notices the thoughts, we are what notices the emotions, and when we get lost in the characters we play, we're going to try and do 10-step programs to change our life. We're going to try and force ourselves to feel disciplined because we feel smaller than our desires. We feel smaller than what we want to manifest. But when you recognize yourself as this spark behind the character, now you're bigger than your desires and you'll have much greater control over your state of being. And the way I see these human vessels or these characters we play is like they're prisms of light. And when we change our state, we're changing how the light flows through these prisms, ultimately changing the reflection we see. So when you own your state, you're not going to try and wrestle the reflection to try and make it change. You're not going to try and smash the mirror. You're going to change how the light flows through you. And when that light bounces back, it's going to show whatever your state of being is. So when you own your state, you get to own what's reflected back. You get to reap the rewards of the light that you're shedding into the world. And one more thing before we move on to how to own your state, I want to go over why people fall out of their desired state of being. And it's just a few small reasons, which are people identify with the character they play, they feel smaller than their desires, and they're stuck in a loop of responding to their reality rather than creating something new. For example, they'll get a bill in the mail and they'll see it as confirmation that they're broke, and then they'll do 100 more affirmations from the state of someone who's broke, trying to change the shadow world as the character they're playing rather than the light that they are. Or they'll get ignored by somebody and automatically experience it as proof that they're not worthy or that they're constantly getting rejected by people. And the thing is, popular people or unpopular people, they both experience being ignored, but they perceive it in totally different ways. Both of them appear as the same physical manifestation, but it's these two people's state of being that totally changes the experience that they have. But in short, it's people outsourcing what they experience to the physical world rather than owning the experience that's happening within them. And when people slip out of their state or outsource their power, they'll try and do quick fixes like affirmations or discipline, or they'll try and use their thoughts and start thinking positive. It could be a totally neutral circumstance, and they'll perceive it negatively when the reality is it's just their state of being or the light that they're reflecting on the world reflecting back to them. But all of these treat the shadow world as the cause. And they adopt the mindset that if they fix the character they're playing, that their identity will elevate. But that's backwards. Your identity changes how the character you play moves and acts and talks and thinks and feels, but changing all of those things is only going to create stress and tension. So it's better to take a step back and shift your state and then notice how the character you play, how the person you identify with starts to move differently, how they start to breathe differently, the new thoughts that will come your way or the new emotions you'll feel or the new inspired actions. This all comes from your state, not from diagnosing problems you think your character has. Now, a quick test you can do to see if you're on the right track, or if you're managing your state versus managing your thoughts and emotions, is change from the outside in will leave you feeling exhausted, and change from the inside out will feel obvious and natural, and something that you can surrender to rather than force your way through. Now let's get into how you can actually own your state of being. The very first step is just noticing where you are now. Notice if you've been blaming the physical world for your problems or for your internal state of being. And this can look like if you're thinking to yourself that if this thing was different, then I would feel better, or once this thing happens, then I will feel how I want to feel, or, once this thing happens, then I'll be able to do what I actually want to do. All of that is outsourcing your power and identifying with the character you're playing. And this will leave you feeling powerless and feeling like you're smaller than your desires or the things you want to manifest. And the second step is to pick a desire, or 100 desires, or just a few, whatever they are, and see the world as if you already had them. And ask yourself what kind of person would already have those things. And then see the world and see the experiences you have through that lens, as if they were already here. And from this, you can show up as someone who's empowered, can show up as someone who's has a good relationship with money, or has good relationships in general, and surrender to it. Don't try to force it. Don't try to affirm yourself into that state. Just surrender to it little by little. And at first it might feel weird, but the more you surrender, the more natural it's going to become, and the more you're going to understand about your desired state of being, and the more you're naturally just going to gravitate towards the things you would do. Earlier I mentioned stuff about 10-step programs or hopping on a new trend every other week. Now, these programs and these trends aren't bad in themselves, but when you hand your power to them, they're not going to have the effect that you're looking for. But when you change your state of being, you may find you gravitate towards them, but instead of hopping to a new trend every other week, you may stick with it for a little bit longer. You may hop, you may not, but you'll understand that it isn't the trend that's going to give you the experience you want to have. It's you. It's what you truly are that is going to give you the experience that you're searching for in the shadow world. And that's pretty much all there is to it, to owning your state of being. Noticing where you are and noticing where you want to go, and viewing the world from that vantage point, as if you were already there. Seeing the world as if you're already at point B. And you'll know you're there because you'll stop outsourcing your power to external conditions. Now let's say you finally surrendered to your desired state of being, but 5 minutes later you slip out of it. That's fine, it's gonna happen. It's like putting on a brand new pair of shoes. It's gonna feel unnatural at first, but if you've ever been in a busy parking lot and you've gone up to your car and tried to open the door and then realized it's not your car, you just naturally go back to the car that you own. You realize that the first car wasn't yours, and it's just like a little whoopsies. And if you find yourself slipping back into an old state, just remind yourself that that isn't your vehicle anymore. That's not the vehicle you use to go about your day or go through your life. So if you slip out of your desired state, just remind yourself that that isn't your state anymore. That's not your car. And then just naturally surrender to the new state. You just go back to your new car, start the engine, and drive away. You just go on about your day. So if you find yourself slipping back into an old state, it's not a big deal. Your manifestations don't reset. Your progress doesn't reset. You simply just close the door and open the one that you want to open. Because owning your state is about ownership. It's not about begging or trying or hoping you end up in the right state of being, or begging and trying to manifest what you want. It's about recognizing that you're experiencing the character, but what you truly are is the light behind it. And when you begin to identify with the light that you are, surrendering to your desired state of being becomes obvious, it becomes natural, it becomes easy. And changing how that light flows through this character is ultimately how you're going to change the reflections that you see. In other words, owning your state of being isn't about control. It's about remembering the truth that your inner experience is the cause, and the outer world is just the echo or reflection shining back to you. And if I were to sum up this video in a single sentence, your life shifts the moment you stop waiting for evidence and start living from the identity that creates it. Now, if you gained any insights or have any questions, share them down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.